Good morning. My name is Marcin Zmaczyński, and I'm responsible for marketing and sales activity for ArubaCloud in Central Eastern Europe. I would like to share with you some, I think, interesting topic about the financial sector and the cloud computing, why those two sectors are going to collaborate, and they already collaborate together, and why it's so important for our market, Central Eastern Europe market, regarding the cloud computing. This is some pictures from Polish 80, the end of 80. This is how it was looking if you would like to do something in a bank, like pay the bill, take the money, salary, and so on. You have to go to the queue. The queue was always very long. It took you usually the whole day. Unless you were pregnant, then you have some speed-up line. But without this, it was quite really tough. But that was just first firewall. The second was when you go into the building, and then again you had a queue. And the UX design was very pure because there was usually 2-3 people who were operating, and you have to just wait for your part. And if you forget something, then you have to go back to the queue again. So that was really tough time. So eventually, if you have something to do with your money, if you have some business to do in the banks, you usually have to take like day off and take all your operation with you to make sure that you won't forget anything. And then you have the whole day just making some business. So that was a bad time. So now we can smile. And yeah, some new technology that was implementing in Polish banks were very alone at the beginning because no one knew what to do with this kind of stuff like ATM machine. So only kids were curious enough to go to see what's this strange things in the wall it is. But people were simply afraid. They preferred to do it in a bank. So yeah, now we can smile and we can think about this like a nice history. But let's be honest, this is not so old history. It's something like 30 years ago. The things has changed rapidly. Now when we'll see some report, we can see that mobile is the leading platform for retail banking customers. I have a short question. How many of you have the application, bank application on your phone that you are using quite often? Yeah. I'm not surprised. You are technology people, so of course you are one of the pioneers if this kind of stuff are launched by any banks. But this is something common. People are usually using mobile phone, and it's absolutely great. We can do it anytime. If my presentation is boring, you can make some operation on your bank application. Just do not waste your time. You can do it anytime you wish. So it's quite simple. And this trend will continue. This is very interesting thing regarding the finance sector, because finance sector is very rigoristic in many ways, also in legal stuff, in restriction, in the case of implementing any new technology. I remember in the beginning of 2000, when I was a young student, I had a great opportunity to work for summer practice for Telenor, and Telenor was planning to sell the electronic banking system in Polish market. So we arranged some meetings with the highest CEO or CIO of the Polish banks in Warsaw. We came for 2 days, 3 days for meetings, and Norwegian managers were very positive. Oh, they're going to sell a lot of the Polish market. It's just pure gold for them. I was also very optimistic that time, but after a few meetings with the C-level people in Polish banks, we were quite surprised because we found a wall. Like, no, we don't need that. People would like face-to-face interface. They prefer to go to the lady in a cash desk and they would like to talk to them. They don't know how to operate the computer. It's pointless. We don't want this kind of technology. So we're all quite surprised and even, I would say, a little disappointed with this kind of attitude that we met on the Polish banks. But then one of the managers told me, don't worry, Marcin, the digitalization is a strong and stable trend. Those banks will have the electronic banking system. I'm not sure if those CTO will survive that. And he was right. Those people, if they were really very opposite of against this kind of technologies, sooner or later they step down. And all those banks already, I can say, have absolutely great electronic banking systems, application systems, and they still continue to grow in digitalization. So, as he said, the trend is strong and stable. we are living now in the time when we don't need money anymore. We usually pay by application, by mobile, by making some operation. And because of that, you can see here the number of the countries that are not using so much money anymore. Because of that, we can see also the other big trend is that the money is disappearing from big banks, especially when the society are cashless society. So we see some, I would say, a trend here that if society is getting more and more digital and more open for new digitalization, they are simply taking the money out of the bank. And banks are aware of that. So the conclusion, the first, is that financial sector is one of the pioneers of digital revolution. I can say that for sure. Banks are aware of that IT and digitalization are not just only the buzzwords or keywords or marketing stuff. Those words has a really meaning for the banks. Here you can see some research from Ernst & Young. They're making something like barometer of banks every year, some big report. They usually are making this on Switzerland, so they're asking 100 the biggest banks in Switzerland, because this is something like the base for them regarding what will happen in the other countries as well. What is also very important is that the banks are aware of that they have competitors. You know, in the past time, when we think money, we think bank. The money, we keep the money in the bank. And the safest place is, of course, the Switzerland banks. But now we don't think like that way. We think that money we can keep in many different places, and the banks are not the only option for us anymore. And that's why we are not loyal anymore, because money are very flexible, especially this digital money. It's very easy to transfer the money from one account to the other or from one place to the other, not only on our territory, but also on international level. So the loyalty of banks' customers are getting lower and lower. Why? Because the fintech has come, but I will come about it. I will tell you about it a little more later. And what is also very important, that banks are closing their officials, the offices that are in the country. They usually are preferred to do it digital. And this trend is also very strong. We can see that banks are cutting the cost by closing the offices, and they're putting a lot of money in investment of the digital sector. And I can say for sure that this trend will also continue. So according to Ernst & Young research, the bank industry will migrate to digital environment for the next 10-12 years. So it will not be so fast, because, but at the end of the day, it will happen. It will happen that people will simply, if you want to go to the banks, it will be simply not possible. You will have to do it online. Probably, eventually, on some virtual reality office, but that's the other story. The other case is cybersecurity. So if you watch any Western's old story, it was always a story about the guys who want to rob some diligence, how to say it, or robbery some banks. Now it's not physical anymore. Now the bad guys are usually operating on the digital level as well. So they're making a lot of this kind of stuff. So you can hear a few examples that Kaspersky Lab has prepared about the financial attacks. Lazarus Group, I'm sure you hear about them. Kara Banak, they are very strong. They operate in many countries. And Turla Group, that's the new one. They are very much operating in Russia and Asia in general. And that's just this is just a few examples of the biggest, I would say, attacks that has been exploited. There's a lot of other attacks that we are not even aware of because they haven't been discovered yet. A few years ago, there was some nice example about the group that was taking only a few cents from each operation between the banks. So the customers and the banks were not even aware, because if someone will charge you like few forints, you will not even notice that. You're not going to call to someone. But if you think about this kind of operation in millions of operations daily, you can think how big money you can get from this kind of activity. So finally, someone has exploited them, but it was not easy because they were doing this on a shadow. They were not very aggressive. They were doing this very slowly. But yeah, there's a lot of activity on the financial sector that security is #1 priority for everyone. Yes, and now let's go slowly into the cloud computing. One of the most, this is the research from Verizon. Verizon is making this kind of annual report about security of all industries, what kind of threats are the most popular one. So the biggest one, which has nothing to do, of course, with stealing your data or money, it's DDoS, denial of service. And this is something what cloud can help the banks, because banks has a lot of problems with this kind of attacks many times. This is a report from the last year, from 2017. So as you can see, top 20, DOS was one of the biggest threats for the bank. Yeah, and here we have the same research, just showing in a little different way, but we can see that 40% of any attacks was denial of service. But we're talking here just for attacking to block the page, yeah, to make it 503 error, not available for customers. So they don't have access to their account, but the money are still on the account. Much more dangerous is stealing the money or data, and here you have one of the most popular way that that is doing this kind of activity. So definitely this is the web application, like one of the biggest threats. So there are some holes, some backdoors in the web applications are usually, of course, social technique as well. So sending some mails, frauds. Stealing some passwords, accounts for some administrators, privilege level. This kind of activity has nothing to do with the cloud. And this is also something very important regarding the cloud and finance sector, that security is the biggest challenge for digital banking industry, and denial of service is the most popular way for attacking. Why I'm saying about DOS? Because when you will see the cloud solution, infrastructure as a service, we can very see simply that on the level of EAS, when you have a responsibility for virtualization, servers, storage, and networking, cloud can help you with the networking. So with this kind of attack like denial of service. Because of the capacity, because of the tools that they have for DDoS attack, they can help you to kill this kind of attack so your customers will not even notice. They can help you that also with the disaster recovery as a center, so to make something like mirror environment for your system. So even if the production system, the first system is going down because of some DOS attack and it's temporarily unavailable, you can simply switch to a disaster recovery as a center. But when we're saying about stealing the money and the data, all this stuff is on your responsibility always, which is application data, middleware, and of course human being, because that's always the weakest point for any kind of security. Yeah, talking also about IT infrastructure and security, the traditional IT architecture is still not good, safe enough. This is something that Forrester Research has made a few years ago, and they have prepared something like zero trust architecture for cloud infrastructure. This is the architecture that is optimizing the cloud solution, but it's also giving you the highest possible rank of security for your solution. So I'm sure you know this this architecture of zero trust. It's well known, and now it's start to be a standard for cloud computing for private, hybrid cloud, or multi-cloud infrastructure. So a multi-cloud and zero trust policy is the best strategy for financial sector. So we as ArubaCloud, we have some of the big financial companies as our customers, and I can tell you that they usually are using hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and of course they're using zero trust infrastructure for their solution, and it's working very well. We spoke that the people are coming out from the banks to some alternative solution, which is the fintech. This is some example of the most popular fintech in Europe. I'm sure you know Revolt. Do you know Revolt? Yeah. They don't have the banking license. This is very important. They don't have the banking license, and they're growing rapidly. Now they have over 2 million active users, and 1 million of their users are active monthly. So they're doing something with their account, not just registration. They really use this card and application for payment. I'm one of the users of Revolt. When I came to Hungary, it's very easy for me just to switch my money into the forints and then just to make a payment. It's absolutely a great tool that can save you a lot of money and problems. So I am not loyal to my bank anymore because they charge me for exchange. Why should I be loyal if they wanted to charge me and Revolt is not charging me anymore? And this is just the beginning because Revolt is planning to have 100 million customers till the end of 2020. And you know what? I think they can manage to do that. They really are growing very strong. They have a really good tool. They're optimizing the tool because they're adding the new services, not just exchange of the currency. Now you can save the money. Now you can have some insurance. Now you can even buy the cryptocurrency in Revolt. So you have a lot of different services that can be very friendly for you and useful for you. I would like my bank to offer me to buying the cryptocurrency. They do not. In Revolt, I can do it just like that, without any problems. I don't have to register to any cryptocurrency exchange. All I have to do is just send some money to my account on Revolt. What is also very important regarding this fintech like Revolt, they're using the cloud technologies. Talking about Revolt, they are based on the Amazon and Google Cloud solution so far. So they are already in the cloud and they're using big data tools of the cloud computing just to analyze your data in a fast and secure way to make sure that they will understand your needs better. Something what banks have to spend a lot of money if they're doing this on their own infrastructure. European Banking Authority are saying that they would like to prepare some better legal law for banking industry to make it more easy for them to migrate from their own infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure. So fintech industry is attractive alternative for bank customers and they are already in the cloud, fintech. You won't find any fintech who's going to build their own infrastructure, data center. They're just simply going to use cloud solution for that. And let's talk a little about European Union. Yeah, the Hungary is here. This is the latest research about cloud computing service used over internet. As you can see, Hungary and Poland are below the average of European Union, which means there is a lot of room for growth for those countries. Here we have 2070, the latest. We see some growth, but still there is no other countries in the research yet, so it's hard to say what is the new average European Union 28, but I'm sure it also has a big kick up. And yes, we all love the banking. So it's very interesting that it took some time to convince customers that electronic banking is something useful for them. Now, as you can see, the average of using electronic banking systems on internet users is very high, almost as high as social networks or shopping, which is quite good factors for us. And Hungary is very close to the average results of European Union regarding the banking system. So your customers, your citizens, you love electronic banking system, you love mobile banking system, you love digitalization, and you will love the cloud computing as well. It's just a matter of time. As I said, one of my friends at the beginning, the trend is strong and will continue. So when we think about cloud computing infrastructure for our system, it's also very important to consider at least one European cloud provider. Why? Because usually banks have this strategy of multi-cloud. So they have some part of their own infrastructure for some very sensitive data, and they're choosing a few vendors. Of course, the big three from US is very popular, like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. But still, when we speak with some CTO of the big banks, they're always saying that they want to have at least one European European cloud provider, just to make sure that it will be also with the European legal statement, like GDPR. So Aruba has the biggest, our biggest core values, is that our data centers has the highest NCI standards, it's rating 4, which is the highest possible security standard for data center. In ArubaCloud, we are saying that behind every cloud there is a data centers, which means that it's very important for you to understand that even if you're going to migrate your data to the cloud, it will be in specific data center, in specific location. And you should be aware what kind of data center it is, what kind of locations it is, and you should choose on which location. For example, in Aruba, we have 8 data centers around Europe, so you can choose in which data centers you would like to keep your data. Because cloud is nothing more like data center, servers, virtualization, yeah? So let's not make it like the data is somewhere in the cloud, like some people are afraid that I don't know where is my data if it's in the cloud. Come on, of course you have to know where is your data. Security. We are one of the co-founders of the CISP, which is a cloud infrastructure service providers in Europe, which means that we are also working very hard to create something like a European cloud community. Our cloud is only powered by green energy, and we are in Open Cloud Foundation, which means that this is the foundation that helps you to switch your data between the cloud vendors very easily. So every vendor who is the part of Open Cloud Foundation will help you to migrate your data to any other cloud provider if you will decide to do so. Yeah, and here you have one of our latest data centers. This one is in Italy, in Milan. There's only 2 data centers in Europe with this rating 4, NCI. One is in Italy, and the second data center is, by the way, in Poland. So conclusion is the cloud infrastructure will still before grow in European Union market, and they're a natural choice for digital economy and business. So if we think about the future, we cannot forget about the cloud computing services. So here there is some summary that you can all read and think about it. And last but not least, do you know this building? Yeah, I'm not, probably you all know that Pentagon is now migrating, partly of course, not all the security data, but some of the data they're migrating to the cloud. There was a big competition in US who is going to win the contract, $10 billion contract with Pentagon. Amazon was the winner. But let's be honest, there is no more secure and important data than Pentagon data, right? And they are already migrating. Of course, I'm not saying that they're migrating all the data, but the trend is strong, even for Pentagon. So thank you so much. If you will have any question, I would like to welcome you to our booth, ArubaCloud booth during the break, and you will learn more about our services. Thank you.